Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the first annual Target roasting session, where we're going to dissect how this retail giant managed to set $10 billion on fire like it was just another Saturday barbecue. That's right, $10 billion. An amount so large that even Bezos would furrow his brow. It's like Target woke up one morning and said, how can we aggressively pursue bankruptcy without technically filing for it? You're a company sitting comfortably with a well-oiled machine of a business model. So, naturally, you decide to ignite a bonfire of dollar bills as a bold financial strategy. Target didn't just dip its toes into the pool of fiscal irresponsibility. They swan-dived into it with the grace of a beached whale. How did this happen? Spoiler alert. It involved ignoring their core customers and burning their marketing budget in the most spectacular way possible. First, let's talk about the estimated marketing budget they might as well have used to wallpaper a mansion. Imagine this. Somewhere in the ballpark of $500 million dedicated to a marketing blitzkrieg that was supposed to captivate America and instead ended up alienating them. That's right, $500 million invested in a campaign that had the precision targeting of a blindfolded toddler with a Nerf gun. It's the kind of fiscal maneuver that makes you wonder if their financial advisors were just a bunch of raccoons in a trench coat. Now, in case you're wondering how you lose your core customers, let me paint you a picture. Imagine you've got a loyal fan base who loves you for your red carts, dollar bins, and the irresistible thrill of spending $100 when you came in for toothpaste. So, naturally, Target decided they were going to pivot to a new demographic, as if they were trying to win over a different kind of cult. The result? A massive drop in stock price by 25%. Yes, you heard it right. They managed to pull off the retail equivalent of a reverse magic trick. Now you see wealth, now you don't. But let's be fair. Maybe they thought, hey, let's dive into something trendy and woke to capture the hearts of newer generations. The risk? Alienating the very people who religiously bought from them. The suburban moms who could navigate those aisles blindfolded with one child in hand and another in the cart. You know, the type of customers who could spot a clearance aisle from 5 miles away. In their quest to reinvent themselves, they forgot that the first rule of a retail empire is never to mess with the people who are single-handedly keeping your ice cream sales alive. Sure, you might think this was an ambitious growth strategy. More like a growth strategy akin to deciding the best way to grow a flower is by dunking it in concrete. And while we're on this roller coaster of financial folly, let's not forget the executive decision-making that rivals the plot twists of a daytime soap. Picture some boardroom higher-ups sipping lattes worth more than the minimum wage they pay associates, high-fiving each other about this excellent pivot. Now, let's delve into the social media blunders, because of course there were blunders. It's almost as if the genius behind Target's Twitter account graduated from the University of using hashtags like a boomer. In a world where every 280-character mistake is forever, you can bet they were out here wielding hashtags with the precision of a drunk surgeon. Because nothing screams, "We're listening to our customers," like a campaign tagline that's a linguistic equivalent of a potato salad at a barbecue. Unwelcome and unnecessary. What's even more impressive is how they skipped the memo on basic consumer psychology. It turns out that while consumers love a brand with personality, they do not enjoy a brand experiencing a full-blown identity crisis. One moment Target's the family-friendly retailer, and the next, it's trying on an edgy persona like that weird transitional phase we all had in middle school. Let's just say the cool experiment was about as successful as a paper umbrella in a hurricane. And who could forget the cutting-edge product line that was supposed to woo the customers? It turns out, nobody actually wanted neon green yoga mats imprinted with motivational quotes that sounded like they were generated by a chatbot. It's this avant-garde leap into irrelevance that solidified Target as the Picasso of poor consumer insight. Congratulations. You've spent millions on what can only be described as the world's most expensive focus group failure. So what's the moral of this modern-day Greek tragedy? When you're a retail behemoth, maybe, just maybe, consider sticking to what your customers love about you instead of trying to become the Walmart of missed opportunities. In the end, Target's attempts at reinvention were like sequels nobody asked for. Unnecessary, costly, and inevitably bound for the bargain bin. Stay tuned for the next episode where we'll explore how Target plans to clean up this financial mess. Spoiler alert, it involves a lot of apologetic commercials and probably some expensive consultants scratching their heads, but hey, at least it's never boring. The launch was supposed to be a triumph, a consumer coup d'etat that would elevate the company to new heights of retail supremacy. Instead, it turned into a cautionary tale in the annals of marketing disasters. As the confetti of optimism settled, the reality of the situation became stark. The fantasy land of projected dominance crumbled, leaving in its wake a corporate nightmare defined by frenzied tweets and plummeting sales. Social media, that relentlessly candid arbiter of public sentiment, was ablaze. Within the first 24 hours of the debacle, the hashtag #TargetFail was trending globally, with over 1 million tweets echoing sentiments of dismay, frustration, and sarcasm. Twitter, it seemed, was the front line of a digital insurrection. One user quipped, "Target's new strategy, aiming for the bullseye but hitting their own foot instead." The comment was retweeted more than 10,000 times, a digital tombstone marking the grave of what was supposed to be a new era. Meanwhile, YouTube became a visual manifesto of public disappointment. The launch video, intended to showcase the innovation and brilliance of the new product line, was met with an overwhelming wave of disdain. With a dislike ratio climbing to 85%, it was clear that the audience was not convinced. Comments such as, "I've seen better launches in a middle school science fair," gained thousands of likes, turning the platform into a sarcastic symposium where the public gathered to cleanse their disillusionment through humor. The financial ramifications were swift and brutal. Market analysts had projected a 15% growth in sales volume within the first quarter following the launch. Instead, the company witnessed an unforgiving 20% plunge almost overnight. A series of hastily convened board meetings at company headquarters became the modern-day equivalent of a medieval crisis council, as executives scrambled to make sense of the catastrophe. The expected growth of $500 million in revenue was replaced by an unexpected loss of $200 million, a stark contrast that left financial experts shaking their heads. Consumer confidence, once the steady undercurrent that buoyed the brand, evaporated. Shoppers, brandishing their smartphones like digital pitchforks, took to other social media platforms to vent their frustration and express regret for what they saw as a misplaced loyalty. Instagram posts mocking the failed launch garnered hundreds of thousands of likes, with users creating memes that juxtaposed glossy marketing images with candid shots of reality. They're captioning a searing indictment of corporate overconfidence. The physical retail spaces felt the impact almost immediately. Foot traffic, which had been expected to rise by 10% following the launch, fell by a staggering 30%. Stores were left eerily empty, like ghost towns lined with the vestiges of a campaign that had promised so much yet delivered so little. Reports of rows of untouched stock and dusty shelves began circulating, accompanied by a sense of betrayal from the employees who had been assured of a blockbuster moment. The press, always keen to feast on the fallen, was relentless. Headlines declaring the company as the latest victim of its own ambition peppered the media landscape. Analysts pontificated about the folly of hubris in glossy business sections, while satirical cartoons depicting the board of directors circling the drain offered a brief moment of levity in the tense corporate offices. Yet, it was the shareholders who delivered the final blow. Stocks, which had been buoyant at the start of the year, took a nosedive. The company's share price dropped 25% in a mere week, a bloodbath that saw billions in market value wiped out. The financial community, those steely-eyed guardians of capital, looked on with a mix of schadenfreude and horror. Predictions of recovery were muted, overshadowed by a need for immediate damage control. The juxtaposition of expectations versus reality became the leitmotif of water cooler conversations and boardroom powwows alike. Senior executives dissected charts that starkly contrasted the anticipated revenue peaks against the actual troughs, a mathematical autopsy of miscalculated optimism. The ambitious forecasts that had once painted a glowing future now served as grim reminders of promises unkept. Despite the calamitous reception, some within the company attempted to salvage hope. Internal memos urged resilience, and the CEO's address to the beleaguered staff called for a redoubling of efforts, peppered with the type of optimism that appeared increasingly naive. Yet the external world remained skeptical, viewing these overtures as desperate attempts to patch a sinking ship with words. In the cacophony of discontent, the public reaction became the ultimate arbiter of the launch's legacy. Where there had once been excitement, now lay a cautionary tale, a stark reminder of the perils of overreach in an age where consumer voices were louder and more influential than ever before. The journey from hopeful anticipation to harsh reality was swift, unforgiving, and all too public. This was not just a disaster, it was a digital spectacle, watched by millions who had once been spectators, but were now participants in the unfolding drama. In the grand symphony of corporate missteps and PR disasters, the crescendo is often the most memorable part. For the retail giant Target, the final movement played out with the sort of soaring and crashing highs that are typically reserved for cautionary tales taught in business schools. The aftermath of their ill-fated decisions and myopic strategies left a swath of devastation as vast as the aisles in their sprawling superstores. By the time the dust settled, shareholders were left clutching their battered portfolios, staring blankly at reports that declared a jarring $9 billion market cap wiped out. It was the kind of fiscal bloodletting that would make even the most hardened Wall Street sharks clutch their bespoke suits in horror. This wasn't just a stumble. It was a full-fledged nosedive off the cliffs of capitalism, executed with the kind of reckless abandon typically reserved for teenage skateboarders and poorly written TV pilots. The CEO, a figure who had confidently steered the Titanic into the iceberg with a smile that never faltered, was unceremoniously shown the door. Of course, this exit was cushioned by a golden parachute so laden with cash it could sink the Lusitania. The severance package was a staggering monument to failure, a cool $45 million. It was as if the board of directors had collectively decided that nothing cushions the blow of poverty better than a severance package that could finance a small country's infrastructure. After all, why should incompetence go unrewarded? For Target, the path to redemption was not a sprint, but a marathon. One that saw the brand hobbling along like a runner with a particularly nasty Charlie horse. It took a full 5 years of groveling, rebranding, and apologizing, not to mention countless focus groups and marketing think tanks, to even begin to mend the tattered fabric of its reputation. During those years, Target became the corporate equivalent of a celebrity caught in a scandal, perpetually in rehab and constantly issuing public apologies, hoping the public would eventually forget their transgressions. Mending customer trust was a Herculean task. Loyal shoppers, once seduced by the siren call of cheap chic, found themselves seeking solace in the arms of Amazon or the embrace of Walmart's steadfast blandness. To win them back, Target embarked on a journey of self-discovery and corporate soul-searching, one awkward social media campaign at a time. They rolled out ads that were so earnest they could make a Hallmark card weep, desperately attempting to rekindle the romance with their disillusioned clientele. In the end, the expensive lesson learned was one that corporations have been hearing since time immemorial, yet always seem eager to forget. Hubris and complacency make poor business partners. They are the sirens that lure companies onto the rocks, promising smooth sailing while privately exchanging knowing glances and sinister chuckles. The executives who remained were left to pick up the pieces, their optimism forcibly injected with sobering doses of reality. They spoke in hushed tones about fiscal responsibility and customer-centric approaches, as if reciting a sacred mantra. The board meetings evolved into somber affairs where PowerPoint presentations were delivered with the same gravitas as state funerals. And so, with a mixture of cynicism and reluctant optimism, the world watched as Target slowly crawled back from the brink. They became the phoenix that rose from the ashes of their own self-immolation, albeit a slightly singed and thoroughly chastened version. As they reclaimed their position in the corporate pantheon, the tale of their downfall became a folk story told in business circles, a dire warning of the perils of forgetting that customers are not just consumers, but the very lifeblood of a company. As for the CEO, now ensconced in a palatial estate somewhere far removed from the retail fray, they reportedly spend their days pondering the complexities of life and luxury, occasionally gracing the pages of business magazines in articles decrying the excesses of corporate culture. Because if there's one thing the world could use more of, it's the wisdom of ex-CEOs who have learned the hard way that steering a corporate juggernaut requires more than just a firm handshake and an MBA. In the end, the tale of Target's costly lesson serves as a reminder that in the ruthless world of business, the only constant is change. And woe betide the executive who forgets it. So as the curtain falls on this particular fiasco, we leave the boardrooms and the balance sheets behind, convinced that if a $9 billion market loss isn't enough to teach a lesson, then perhaps, just perhaps, the lesson is worth reconsidering.